Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Based EDH, your source for no cringe commander. And today, it is just me. It is, in fact, your boy, Tyler. Dakota's not with me because he refuses to do this deck tech with me, and by that I mean it's like 9 o'clock on a Saturday. The regular crowd shuffles in. but I have been thinking about Shadrix Silverquil a lot lately. I think that he's a really interesting commander. There's a lot of different build paths you can go to work him, but frankly, I couldn't decide which. So I started looking at Shadrix, and I realized that he's probably one of the most Chad Orzhov decks that you could build, if not simply because of his artwork. I mean, take a look at this guy. Artwork is a huge thing for me when I'm playing Commander, and so to be able to look at this awesome dragon every time I sit down to play, make me happy. So that's already a +1 for the deck. Also, look at this chin. Look at this Chad chin. The jawline is insane. This guy has like paleo jawline. Those boys were tight, and Shadrix does not care. Hence the name of this deck, Giga Chadrix. So, what do we want to do with this deck? How do we play it? How do we win? Well, I feel like when I look online at EDH Rec, or when I look at other people's deck lists for Shadrix, they focus on one of his abilities. But I couldn't decide which one I wanted to do, and I just wanted to build a really cool Shadrix deck that makes me feel good when I play it. So let me go ahead and read them off for you. Let's pull them back up here. Shadrix Silverquil. For 3, a white and a black, you get an Elder Dragon, flying, and double strike. Double strike, baby, let's go. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player, and you have 3 options here. Target player gets a 2/1 white and black inkling with flying. Target player draws a card and loses a life. Love that. Or, target player puts a +1 counter on each creature they control, and he is a 2/5. A 2/5 with double strike, so he's already swinging for 4 at the bare minimum. Now, I want you to take a close look at his abilities. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. That doesn't say on attack. That doesn't say on damage. That just says at the beginning of combat. So as soon as you go to your combat step, you get to choose 2, meaning you don't have to send Shadrix into a bad situation to start doing what your deck wants to do. You could just declare combat and I think I'll make an inkling, or I think you'll make an inkling, or I get to draw cards, or I get to put +1 counters on each creature they control. So let me put this in different words. Let's say you ramp and you get Shadrix on turn 4, or you just get him out naturally on turn 5, which we don't want to do, and we have a good ramp package to prevent just that from happening. Hold on. Onyx, leave that kitty alone. Sorry, we just got a new kitten, and an actual kitten. I'm not a Discord moderator, but she's very small, and my other cat's just getting used to her, and he doesn't understand the concept of playing gently. And he's kind of big, so I'm having to watch him. Be a good boy, Onyx. That's Onyx is in the stone, not the Pokemon. He's not a rock snake. But he is a very good boy. If he'd just be a little more gently with his friends. Anyways, back to the tech. You don't have to declare, you only have to declare Shadrix attack, oh my goodness, I've lost my mind. You don't have to declare Shadrix attacking or deal combat damage to get those abilities. All you have to do is just go to combat, and you're getting it. It's awesome. And so, if you want, on turn 4 or 5, you can go to combat. Target player puts a +1 on each creature they control. Let's say you just have Shadrix out. Well, now you have a 3/6 double strike. On your next turn, when he can attack, he's now a 4/7 double strike, meaning that on the first turn, he's reasonably going to attack. You can deal 8 damage in the air with this guy. I mean, he's a freaking Chad. He can't be stopped. He's massive, and he's only going to get more massive. And if you don't want him to get more massive, you can go wide. Make yourself some inklings. Now, one of these days, I'm going to build the inkling deck. I love the little guys. They're so cute. But Shadrix can make them go really, really wide, and then once you have 3 inklings on the battlefield, then start putting +1s on each creature you control. And that's going to pay dividends the more creatures you have out, because it's just going to pump your board every turn. Furthermore, I love seeing card draw slapped to a commander, even if I'm paying a life. I've said it before, I love paying life to draw cards because I usually get it at a good rate mana-wise. Every turn, if you want to draw cards, you can with Shadrix. And now that's kind of reflected in our card draw package. People who know me know that I like to have at least 10 in my card draw slot because it's so important to me. But since we have it on our commander, I went ahead and was okay with doing just 8 this time. I'll run them through you real quick. So, a species specialist. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We're probably going to choose Inkling, and by probably, I mean definitely going to choose Inkling. Whenever a creature of the chosen type dies, you can draw a card. So if I give an Inkling to an opponent, and for whatever reason it dies, be it combat or they sack it to their Ashnod's altar, Lord forbidding, then you're going to get to draw a card. And Species Specialist, I mean, he might draw you 10 cards as the game progresses. He's a really good boy. Skull Clamp. Everybody who's been playing Magic for like the last 4 years knows Skull Clamp, and it's only been going up in price. It drops every once in a while. I think there was a reprint not too long ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the equipped creature gets +1/-1. Can you believe that they thought that that was a downside back in the day? Whenever the equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards. So slap that thing on an Inkling, it promptly pisses off to the Shadow Realm, and you get to draw 2 cards for your trouble. Sign in Blood, pay 2, draw 2. Love it. Painful Truths. Now, unfortunately, you're only going to be able to get 2 colors to do the Painful Truths, but you're still going to pay 3, draw 2, lose 2. Not a bad rate. If you want, you can switch that with another draw spell. I would recommend... there's another card kind of like Ambition's Cost. I can't remember exactly what its name is, but it's the exact same cost and effect for paying 4, draw 3 cards, lose 3 life. Slap that thing in there. It'll work really good for you. Continuing. Mentor of the Meek. This was one of the last cards I put in, and it completely slipped my mind because I'm so used to using Mentor of the Meek for my 1/1 soldiers and not for anything else. So I forgot that it could proc off of a 2/1 Inkling. So, Mentor of the Meek says whenever another creature power 2 or less enters your battlefield, you get to draw a card if you pay 1. Well, Inklings are 2/1s. So this way, if you need it, you can Mentor of the Meek, get your Inkling, and draw a card in case you couldn't decide what you wanted to do with Shadrix. Idyllic Tutor. Now, some people don't like to put tutors in their card draw section. I see it as drawing 1 card and 1 card of whatever you need. Now, this one is limited to enchantments, but it can find a lot of really good enchantments that we're going to go over with. We're going to go over more in the future. One of those enchantments is Agreed. I know it's kind of weird to go tutor and get something that draws you cards, but Greed is just too good of a card to ignore. If you've got leftover black mana at the end of your turn, slap it in there, pay the 2 life, who cares if you're losing the life, and then draw a card. Repeatable card draw on a stick. That's what we like to see. Hopefully it doesn't get removed. Let's run you over the ramp package real fast. We've got 9 pieces. Most of our deck doesn't really cost that much. Now that I look at it, I'm seeing a lot of 5s and a couple of 6 costs, even a 7 cost Mass Calcify, but it's worth every penny, trust me. But we've got some pretty good low-to-the-ground ramp. Talisman of Hierarchy. Pay 2, you can tap it and make a white or black, and it deals 1 damage to you. A small price to pay for colored ramp at 2. Soul Ring, you know what it does. Smothering Tithe, you ought to know what it does. It commands a $43 price tag according to Card Kingdom. Looks like TCG might have it for $30, and that's a pretty good deal for this card. But you pay 4, you get an enchantment that you can tutor out with your Idyllic Tutor. And whenever an opponent draws a card, they either pay 2 or you get a treasure. Now that's some A1 ramp. And trust me, they're probably not going to pay. At least they aren't for a while. Onyx, are you being nice to that kitty, or am I going to have to come over there? Good boy. he's kind of a little jerk, but he's a good cat. Orzhov's Signet. You pay 2, you get colored ramp. Mind Stone, you pay 2, you get colorless ramp. Heraldic Banner. Heraldic Banner enters, and I think you're probably going to choose white, because we can actually make more white tokens than black tokens, and inklings are both. But this says, creatures you control get +1 of whatever chosen color when this thing enters the battlefield. So you pay 3, it enters the battlefield, you choose white, and now your inklings are 3 1-flyers instead of 2 1s. And anybody who's played an Alayla Artful Provocateur knows how valuable it is to +1 the power of your little flyers to get in. Also, it's a mana rock, not bad. Felwar Stone, it just got reprinted in the new D&D Commander set. So grab them while you can, because they usually get back up to like $10, I think. But for 2 mana, you get to tap it and make, at the bare minimum, just 1 mana of a colorless, because it'll fizzle that effect. But if you're lucky, it'll make you a white or a black or both. Dark Ritual. Oh, if I can get to it. I love this old artwork for the Dark Ritual. Anyways, it's an instant. You pay a black, you get 3 mana. So you net 2. This means on turn 3, you can usually get your Shadrix out, or blast it on something else and help you get other ramp out. Arcane Signet, or as I like to call it, the Brawl Ring. You pay 2, you tap it, you get 1 mana of any color. It's just a better Talisman of Hierarchy in this deck. Unless you're considering the artwork, which is amazing, because I love chess, because I am in fact a complete nerd, and I just love the artwork. Also, it's got flavor text from Kaya, which I believe she's talking to Teysa Karlov in this, but correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, so when I mentioned earlier, Shadrix wants to do a couple of different things in this deck. I am aware that unfocusing a deck can lead to a weaker deck, but I think we can get away with it, because depending on what we draw, we can tailor our Shadrix effects to value. So I have an entire section over here called token stuff, which, as you would assume, deals with making tokens or killing tokens or just having synergies. Now, let's run you through it. Now, Suture Priest is one of my old favorites. You pay 2, you get a 1/1. If a creature enters your battlefield, gain a life. Cool. That'll help mitigate that card draw effect from Shadrix when we lose one. Also, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. Remember it. Please don't forget that it does that, because it's a may, so they can get away with, nah, you didn't tell me to, if you're not careful. Of course, usually you're playing with friends, and we just fix those things as they go. But a great way to get things drained down to manageable levels as far as life totals go, and you're going to be giving people inklings, so it'll proc. Secure the Waste. It's just too good of a token card to not put in the deck. X and 1 make X 1/1 white warrior creature tokens. Slap like 9 mana into that thing, and just watch your opponents get scared of a bunch of 1/1 warriors. Ink Shield. What a cool card. What a cool artwork. 3, white-black instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn. For each damage prevented this way, get a 2/1 white and black inkling. So let's say you prevent 10 damage. You're going to have 20 damage on the crackback from all your inklings. A great, great card. Dramatic Finale. For 4 hybrid Orzhov, so 4 of whatever combo white and black you want to do, you get an Anthem. Creatures you control get +1, and whenever 1 or more tokens... whenever 1 or more non-token creatures an opponent controls die, you get a 2/1 inkling. This only triggers once a turn. Now, that's kind of a picky second ability. I think it's really cool because of the artwork, and I am not above just running a card for the artwork. However, things are going to die on your opponent's battlefield, and we're in Orzhov. We're in the removal colors, if you want my opinion. You're going to make some inklings off of this effect. Deathbringer Liege. Deathbringer Liege is a very popular card with Shadrix, because he is not only going to pump your inklings for being white, he's going to pump them for being black as well. Meaning that because they're both, and this is 2 separate lines, they're going to get +2/+2. A 4/3 inkling is a force to be reckoned with in the air. There are cards I've casted 4/3 dragons, let alone inklings. Furthermore, whenever you cast a white spell, tap target creature. Whenever you cast a black spell, you can destroy target creature if it's tapped. Now, we don't really have that many white and black creatures. I think we have a Cruel Celebrant in here somewhere. Oh, yeah, she's literally above the Deathbringer Liege. So she will enter and blow up something, but the only other one to do that will be Shadrix. The reason that Deathbringer Liege is in here is because you pay 5 and your Inklings become 4/3s. That's why he's in here. Cruel Celebrant that I just mentioned, she is such a hoe, and I love her. Whenever another creature dies... Oh, or a Planeswalker. That's cool, but not relevant because we're not running walkers in this deck. Each opponent loses 1, you gain 1. Simple aristocrat strategy. Cathar's Crusade. Creature enters your battlefield, put a +1 on each creature. That gets out of hand very fast with Shadrix. Bloodseeker, one of my old favorites. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you can have them lose a life. Don't forget it. Bastion of Remembrance. You pay 3, you get 2 humans. And then, whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. Cool effect. Basri's Lieutenant. Now, Basri's Lieutenant is not a card to be slept on in this deck. He's actually quite powerful, and let me tell you why. You pay 4, you get a Vigilant Protection from Multicolored Knight. He's 3/4, so an okay rate. Oop. Onyx, you better leave that cat alone. I'm trying to record a podcast here. Hold on, I'm going to have to pause and take care of him. Oh, yes. So Basri's Lieutenant. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1 counter on a creature you control. When it or another creature you control dies, if it had a counter on it, get a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. So let's say you've got this and Shadrix and a couple of Inklings on the battlefield. Shadrix can put a counter on everything. And now when your creatures die, you're going to get a 2/2 knight. And if you put counters on the knight, then you're going to get another knight when they die. So it almost guarantees you're going to have a board presence until somebody can deal with Basri's Lieutenant. Lieutenant. I can't speak today for some reason. Anointed Procession. This is another high dollar card, kind of like the Smothering Tithe. If it's out of your budget, pull it out and put in another piece of removal or some other fun thing that you like to do, some sort of a cool equipment that you can slap on Shadrix. You don't have to spend big money to have fun in Magic. Oop, I need to put down my little window here. I'm such a bad podcaster. One of these days I'm going to learn how to edit, and the show is actually going to be really cool. But if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. Acroan Horse. Now, when it enters the battlefield, you give the horse to somebody, and then each other player at the horse controller's upkeep is going to make a 1/1 soldier. So, a great way to just kind of spread the love, start getting soldiers everywhere. Let's go over the removal package, and then I'll talk to you about the Chadrix section, pun intended, and the banger section, because I'm really excited about those two. So, removal, Swords to Plowshares. Everybody knows what it does. You exile a creature, its controller gains life equal to the power. Small price to pay to get it out of the way. Slaughter the Strong. Now, I really like this board wipe in this deck because each player chooses any number of creatures, total power 4 or less, then sacrifice everything else. So, Shadrix has 2 turns worth of pumping himself before he has to be subject to Slaughter the Strong. That's a lot of time before this is a one-sided board wipe to save Shadrix and blow up any other threats. Plague Engineer. What a great card, and it got a time-shifted version recently. If you want the old border-looking version, which is really, really cool. I don't think it costs that much more. You pay 3, you get a, it's not like a Phyrexian carrier. I think it's been errated too. It's a 2/2 with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We're going to choose probably Inkling. Creatures of the chosen type your opponent control get -1/-1. Now we don't have to play nice. Now we can just one-sided Shadrix. I'm going to put a +1 on everything I control. You go ahead and make an Inkling, and then it's promptly going to piss off and die. Or you can draw a card, give them the Inkling. Really, really cool effect. It also stops opponents, or it doesn't stop opponents' token strategies, but it hinders it a lot. Pestilence. Don't sleep on this 25-cent enchantment. At the end of any turn, if there are no creatures in play, bury. This means sacrifice. Pestilence. Pay a black. Pestilence deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. So, off the bat, Pestilence is going to blow up every Inkling, unless you have an Anthem effect, which you probably will, because there's quite a few. This also can just be a mana sink to deal a lot of damage to people. I've died and have killed plenty of people with a Pestilence before. It's a very, very underrated card. I wish it would see more play, because I feel like it's quite valuable. Excuse me. Merciless Eviction, one of the better board wipes in the game, in my opinion. It's kind of expensive. It's kind of a cool old card. You pay 6 mana. You choose one of these following effects. You either exile artifacts, or creatures, or enchantments, or planeswalkers. Now, this is a great way for you to just get rid of everybody's Ashnod's altars or their mana rocks. But you have a lot of mana rocks, so maybe you don't want to do that. But it is a selective board wipe nonetheless, and it's an exile effect. So it's a really versatile problem solver, worth the 6 mana in my opinion. Also, anytime you're running Orzhov colors, that's a great board wipe to lean on. Massacre Worm. When it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. That kills Inklings, and then some. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they lose 2 life. Great way to drain them after you've given them a couple Inklings, or kill their Hate Bears or their Mana Dorks, and just make them take some damage. Massacre Girl. Now, if Shadrix is the Giga Chad of the deck, Massacre Girl is the Stacy. She's the hot girl at prom, and she is a banger. Now, she's kind of a bit of a yandere girlfriend, if you know what I mean, but she's a 4/4 menace for 5, and when she enters the battlefield, she -1/-1s each other creature. Then whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets more -1s. So let's say she enters and there's 3 1/1 Inklings on the battlefield. She's going to -1 and give all creatures -1/-1. Then she's going to see that she killed 3 creatures. So now creatures are going to get a total of -4 until the end of the turn. Let's say that kills 2 more creatures. Now creatures are going to get a total of -6. And it keeps going and keeps going until nothing dies. Massacre Girl can absolutely kill even the biggest Eldrazi Titans if the board is correct. And since you are making so many Inklings and other tokens, she's probably just going to be a board wipe, and she's just going to stand alone in a pile of blood. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Tyler, then our Shadrix is gone. We have Recursion to deal with that. We can just cast him again one more time. It's not the end of the world to cast him for 7. But you can absolutely equip some of Shadrix's toys to Massacre Girl that we're going to talk about. Because at the end of the day, she's a 4/4 with Menace. So that's a good little bit of evasion. And your opponents are going to have a hard time rebuilding. And if they do rebuild, they probably aren't going to want to put their valuable creature in front of Massacre Girl. Oh, actually, they're going to need 2. And Massacre Girl is probably going to kill them. Mass Calcify. This is almost always a one-sided board wipe for you. This is going to kill your Massacre Girl, your Massacre Worm. It's going to kill your Species Specialist. But it's going to save Shadrix. It's going to save your Inklings. It's going to save your Cruel Celebrant, your Suture Priest. And it's going to destroy all other non-white creatures. A great board wipe if you can get up to the 7, which I'm pretty sure we can. Illness in the Ranks. This is one of the better cards to tutor with your Idyllic Tutor that we just talked about. Creature tokens get -1/-1. Static effect, going to kill all the Inklings. Your Species Specialist is going to love Illness in the Ranks. So, yes, this stops you potentially from building up your Inkling army unless you have some sort of Anthem to counteract this, but this turns Shadrix's abilities into a kind of a group hug effect, into a nope, all for me and none for you effect, and only for 1 black mana. Absolutely Idyllic Tutor for this guy, and go get it onto the battlefield. Generous Gift. Great card. Pay 2 and a white. Destroy target permanent. That's permanent. Any permanent. Even a land or something else that's a problem. Its controller gets a 3/3 elephant. D-Spark. Ooh, my voice cracked. It's all this smoke that's been in the air. I still haven't recovered lately. D-Spark. You pay 2, exile target permanent, CMC 4 or greater, or mana value, as the kids would call it nowadays. I guess I'm just a boomer. Blot Out the Sky. Probably my favorite card in the deck for artwork and for function. Pay X and Orzhov, or Silverquill, I guess. Again, I'm a boomer. Create X tapped 2/1 white and black Inklings. If X is 6 or more, destroy all other non-creature, non-land permanents. Blow up all the artifacts, blow up all the enchantments, blow up all the planeswalkers, get them out of the way, make a ton of inklings that you can swing in on the next turn and just end the game. Or they die from your, your illness in the ranks, or your pestilence if you want to blow them up, and then draw that many cards with your species specialist. Great card. Austere Command. It's a kind of a staple of mono white removal. Pay 6, you choose 2 of these effects. Destroy all artifacts or enchantments or creatures mana value 3 or less, or creatures mana value 3 or more. At the bare minimum, you can pay 6 and choose destroy all creatures 3 or less or 4 or greater and just blow everything up. Or, there's an enchantment over there that's really giving me hell. Let's blow those up. It's a selective board wipe, and having a little bit of variance in selection is quite a powerful effect. Now, I want to cover the Chadrix section, because not only is Shadrix, I almost call him Chadrix all the time now because of this deck, he pumps himself up, but we can get really, really cool effects. Citadel Siege. Now, you can choose cons or dragons when it enters the battlefield, and like usual, we're going to choose cons, which is kind of a flavor fail because Shadrix is a dragon. At the beginning of a combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. So start combat. Citadel Siege triggers. Put 2 counters on Shadrix. Now, let's say at the bare minimum he had nothing. Well, now he's going to be a 4-something double striker. Then his ability says put a +1 counter on him. Now he's a 5-something double striker. Before you know it, this guy's a 2-hit. And before you know it, he's going to be a 1-hit for commander damage. Citadel Siege really can get out of hand. And if they get rid of Chadrix, cool. Citadel Siege, start putting +1 counters on your inklings. And they're going to become big flyers before you know it. Colossus Hammer. I can already hear you complaining, Dakota. I know that it loses flying, and I don't care. Colossus Hammer is one of my favorite cards. It's so much fun to just say, hey, give something +10/+10. And yes, Shadrix is going to lose flying, but he's also going to be a one-shot on the ground that must be answered, and I love that. And if we get lucky, we could Rogue's Passage our way through into that. Or, if we get lucky, we can use our removal to take out the pieces that we need out of the way. Pestilence, just Pestilence everything out of the way, because they're probably not going to be 12/12s. So if you can dump 11 into Pestilence, drain everybody for 11, and now Shadrix is still alive and swinging for 24 damage with that Colossus Hammer. Yes, you have to pay 8 to get it on there, but you know what? It's not the end of the world if at the end of the day, you've got to stick 8 mana and put it on an Inkling, or put it on your Massacre Girl and swing for 14 with Menace. A great card. I think it goes in more decks, and it's not the most competitive card, but I'll be darned if it's not one of the funnest cards. Eternal Thirst. This uncommon was one of the first cards I ever played with when I started playing Magic. It was in my little mono black 60 card jank that a friend made for me. And it is one of the best cards in this deck. Let me tell you why. It is 1 in a black enchant creature. The creature has lifelink. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1 counter on this creature. So now, Shadrix is going to see every Inkling that gets blown up, and he's going to put counters on himself. So if you have your Plague Engineer or your Illness in the ranks, or just start removing your opponent's things, he's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's a double striking dragon, my guys. He is going to get through for massive damage. Furthermore, he's going to lifelink back all the life you lost from paying life to draw cards, whether from his effect or from the other cards. Gift of Doom, kind of an underrated protection spell, and it's in mono black nonetheless. You pay 5, the enchanted creature, gets double strike and indestructible. Or sacrifice another creature. Oh, it has a morph, so you can pay 3 to make it a 2/2 morph creature. Now, this is the only morph card we have in this deck, so don't count on it being a surprise. Anybody who plays you more than twice is going to know what this does. But you pay 3. You make it a 2/2 creature. Now it says, to morph it, you sacrifice another creature. So sacrifice an Inkling. And now you have paid 3 mana and 1 creature to give your Shadrix Death Touch, and Indestructible. Banger. Absolute banger. This is a great way to make sure that he stays on the battlefield. And now nobody's going to want to touch him because he's going to kill the first thing on his first swing. And he's going to come through and kill another on the second if they don't have enough to stop it. Gift of Immortality. This has become a lot more popular lately because I think this infinite combos with Siona, Captain of the Pylias, which is a cool Selesnya 1/1 combo commander. It has pay 2 and 1, equip the creature. Or enchant the creature. I'm out of my mind today. When the enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Then, return Gift of Immortality to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. Now, this does give them an opportunity to try to get rid of this thing. And also, it doesn't stop exiling. But for the most part, now Shadrix gets murdered with Gift of Immortality on it. He's coming back. And then, if you can't do something about him again, Gift of Immortality is coming back. So, you can see where that's going to be kind of a problem for your opponents. Haunted Cloak. You pay 3. Equip creature has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. You equip it for 1. Once it's out, it's so easy to get the Haunted Cloak back on. And giving your double striking flying commander Trample, Haste, and Vigilance is just chef's kiss. Mucho bueno. Do it every time. Lightning Greaves. This has gone down in price because it's been reprinted a couple times. I think you can actually get them for about $5. Now, my TCG player thing right here says $6.60. I think you can get them for about $5. And if you're lucky, you can go to your LGS and get them for about that. But it's a great equipment. You pay 2, put it on the battlefield, pay 0. The equipped creature has Haste and Shroud. Now, you're not going to be able to put counters on it with the Citadel Siege if it has Haste. So, kind of keep that in mind. You're not going to be able to equip other things like the Colossus Hammer, but you are going to protect it. So, keep that in mind. Just be a good Magic player, and remember that you can't target it because of that Shroud ability. Shroud says your opponents and you can't target it. But you can always pay 0, equip it to one of your Inklings, then put it back on. Just keep in mind that's going to give your opponents a chance to respond. Loxodon Warhammer. I just have a thing for hammers, I guess. You pay 3, put it on the battlefield. You pay 3 to equip it. And the creature gets +3/+0, trample, and lifelink. So now your Shadrix is going to be a 5/5 double striking, flying, trampling, lifelinking dragon. And who doesn't like swinging for 10, gaining 10, and trampling over your opponents? Sparring Regimen. Pay 2 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, learn. Irrelevant. Because we don't have a sideboard, we can't pull the lessons out of our exile or whatever, how that effect works, because that's how Commander works. But you can either do that, or you can discard a card and draw a card, which is relevant sometimes. I'm wasting your time. You don't care about the learn section. What you care about is whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature and untap it. This gives your Shadrix pseudo-vigilance and pumps him up each attack step, just like your Citadel Siege and just like his own effects do. Swiftfoot Boots. Pay 2, you get a Hexproof and Haste equipment, equips for 1. And people argue whether or not it's better than Lightning Greaves. I'll let the price tag speak for itself. But it does give Haste, which is important because it's hard to get Haste in these colors without equipment. And Hexproof. Just a little bit of extra protection. Okay, so besides the lands, we have one more section. So I'll cover the lands really quick. Like me and Dakota like to say, you can really change the price total of your deck by choosing what lands you want to do. And if you need to just slap in a command tower and then 15 swamps, 15 plains, and just balance it out, I would recommend about 36 for this particular deck, and you should be okay. I've run decks very similar to this, and 36 to 35 lands has worked great in the past. The only lands we really need to talk about, we have a multi-land here, we have a multi-land here, we have a multi-land here, which is a flavor win because it's from Strixhaven, and we have a Rogue's Passage. Pay 4, target creature can't be blocked. Really cool effect if you want to send in a double striking dragon and you don't want to have to deal with him being stopped in the air. and then another dual land. But you know what? If it's too expensive and you don't feel like paying $12 for a land, cut it, add in a plains, cut it, add in a swamp. Do what you got to do for your budget. You don't have to spend a ton of money to play and have fun at this game. That's one of the beauties of it. All right, second to last section, the bangers. Now, the recursion could also be put into the bangers section, but I had enough of them because we're in pretty good recursion colors that I just made them their own section. So I'll talk about the recursion half. Unburial Rites is one of my favorite cards because let's say it gets milled, you can still cast it. And let's say that you've already used it once, well, you can do it again. Unburial Rites says put target creature from your graveyard back on the battlefield. So rather than paying the 7 mana to get Shadrix from your command zone, you can just let him die if you have an Unburial Rites in your hand. Pay 5. You just paid for his cost again to get him out. And then you can do it again for even less with that flashback cost for 4. Reanimate. Kind of an expensive card. If you don't like it, cut it and put Rise from the Grave in. It's a 5-cost recursion spell. But Reanimate is so powerful because you can pay a black, put target creature from any graveyard. So if your opponent has a... let's say they have a Galta in their graveyard. Pay a 1 black, pay life equal to that card's CMC, or the mana value, as the cool kids would say, and put it onto the battlefield under your control. Great way to steal a card out after you've killed it with your generous gifts and your mass calcifies and so on. But this is a great way to get Shadrix back out after he inevitably bites the dust. Dread Return. A really cool, only a quarter for this card. A 4-cost sorcery, 2 black. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Flashback. You can cast it again from your graveyard by sacking 3 creatures. You're probably going to have enough inklings that you can flash back this sucker. And so that's a great... And if you know you have Dread Return in your hand, maybe make some more inklings for protection with Shadrix. Breath of Life. Cool old card. Pay 3 and a white. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's just like that second part flashback cost from your Unburial Rites. Anyways, let's move on to the last section of the deck, the bangers. Some of these things I just couldn't help. Now, Tyler, why is Army of the Damned in here? One, I just like making 13 zombies, my guy. I love making 13 zombies. And I love doing it again for 10 mana from my graveyard. If that doesn't tickle your fancy, cut it, add in some more removal, add in the token synergy of your choice. I just love having the ability to make a ton of zombies and have, well, if you get it out, it's 26 damage worth of power on the battlefield, which turns into over 50 damage worth of power once you flashback it again. Cool card. Blind Obedience. Now, if this card just said pay 1 and a white to have X stored on the battlefield, I would still run it. But it has more than that. It has artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter tapped. Don't underestimate that second half ability. That slows down aggro strategies. That slows down combos because they can't tap their things to do funny stuff. So that stops an Urza for a little while anyway, unless they counter your Blind Obedience, which they probably are going to, because if you're playing against an Urza, no disrespect, a little bit of disrespect intended, they're kind of degenerates in the first place. I know, because I knew that if I pulled an Urza, I would build it as nasty as I could too. So, don't underestimate that second ability to just stop their mana dorks and their mana rocks and their attackers, because they're tapped down. Extort, if you didn't know what it means, says whenever you cast a spell, you can pay a white or a black. And if you do, each opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So, if you have a creature with Extort on it, and another creature with Extort, you could cast a spell and then pay 1 for each of those creatures because they trigger separately. And then you're going to ping the board, your opponents anyway, for 1 life and then another life, and then gain all the life that was lost that way. Really, really powerful effect in multiplayer. Depth 2, the Deathless. Apart from having amazing artwork, oh, that's from my boy, Seb McKinnon. I'm a normie. I don't care. Sue me. I love Depth to the Deathless. Pay black, white, X. Each opponent loses twice X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Let's say you just cast this for 6 mana. Each opponent loses 2 life. In a 4-player game, that is 6 life lost. You're just going to gain 6 life and ping them all for 2. And if it's in the late game and you have a lot of mana lying around that you can just dump it into this thing, do it. and just drain the board of half their life, gain all that life, and prepare to be the archenemy. And if you're like me, you kind of like doing that. So it can be a lot of fun. I mean, the price tag kind of speaks for itself. It's almost a $2.50 uncommon, or $2.30. TCG has it for $1. Maybe I spoke too soon. Now, speaking of another uncommon that's worth a couple bucks, Exsanguinate. Black, black, and X. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Very, very similar to Debt to the Deathless. A great way to finish the game and a great way to gain a ton of life if you need to. Howl from Beyond. One of my other favorite cards from this deck. I used to run a really jank Yargle mono black deck, and this was one of the great ways I would win. Not too many combat tricks seen in Commander. This is a good one, though, and it's a surprise because it's black. Pay black and X. Target creature gets plus X plus O until the end of the turn. It's black fire breathing for a turn. And when your commander is a double striker, you can see how this can get out of hand. So let's say you've cast Shadrix on turn 5. Turn 6 rolls around. Now you have 6 mana available if you've hit your land drop. And you can cast your Howl from Beyond. So you attack with Shadrix. Howl from Beyond, where you pay a black and then 5 for X because you have 6 mana. He's going to get plus 5 plus O, meaning that he's now a 7/5 double striker, meaning he deals 14 commander damage in the air. You're 2/3 of the way done with your commander damage if you can just Howl from Beyond the next turn. And later in the game, if you have just excess mana and they make a dumb block and they don't block an Inkling. Pump up an Inkling even. But Shadrix loves Howl from Beyond. Pontiff of Blight. Pay 6, you get a 2/7 extort. We just went over that a moment ago. Now here's the kicker. The reason this guy is good is because he says other creatures you control have extort. So if you have 5 Inklings, they all have extort. You cast your Cruel Celebrant, and then you get to pay 1 for each creature that you have, and drain the board and gain that much life. It gets out of hand really fast in a token strategy. And if you make even more with your Secure the Wastes, and they all have extort, you're going to win the game. Last card. Another one of my favorites. I couldn't help but put it in the deck, because we're playing Orzhov, so we're going to remove things, and things are going to die. Revel in Riches. Pay 4 and a black. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact with tap, sacrifice it, add a mana of any color to your mana pool. Most people know what treasures are, but I want to respect people who don't maybe know what they are. They are just, it's like almost like a one-time land that you get to have. Super powerful to have that much mana at your disposal. Another really fun effect, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you controlled 10 or more treasures, you just win the game. Be warned, this will put a target on you. If you have like 5 treasures and you cast a Revel in Riches, people are going to notice. And they're going to see how fast you can kill things with Shadrix, especially when you start doing things like Massacre Girling, or Mass Calcifying, or Illness in the Ranks, all of their Inklings. It gets out of hand really, really fast. Anyways, that's the deck. That's Giga Chadrix. I think he's a super fun Orzhov commander, and I'm kind of a dirty little slut for Elder Dragons, so any chance I get to brew one, I'll take it. Amazing artwork on him as well. Even the not extended artwork is a great artwork for him. And if you want a deck that can either go focused, kind of like I built to be aggressive, or a deck that you could tune to be a bit more Orzhov group huggy, you absolutely can. And you know the best part about him is he's not super complicated like Brina the Demagogue, the face Silverquill commander that came out in the precons. So the Virgin Brina the Demagogue, the Giga Chadrix. I need somebody to make that meme. Maybe I can do it. I don't know how to edit. But anyways, that's the deck. I really hope you enjoy it. And it's not even that much of a price tag compared to a lot of other decks. It's $263. You want to cut that down? Cut the Smothering Tithe. There's $40 in your pocket. Cut the Anointed Procession. Oops. Cut the Anointed Procession. That's another $40 in your pocket. Cut the Revel in Riches if you've got to. I really think it goes in here, but it's $10 in your pocket. A lot of high value cards. This Reanimate should be about $10. Yep, sure is. but make a couple of cuts here and there, tune your mana base the way you need it, and you can save easily $100 off of this deck. You could probably get this deck to $100, and it still is going to run and play and have a lot of fun at your EDH night. But anyways, I'm Tyler. My boy Dakota, will see you next time. He hates me right now. He just doesn't like my Giga Chadrix deck. Oh man, he's not going to like it even more when I actually build it and then blow him up with it. So, I think this is going to be a really, really fun deck. But thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to leave you be. Thank you for checking out the deck tech and checking out the channel. If you like the deck techs, subscribe. We're going to work more and more on making the quality better each time we can. But this is just kind of, we've been wanting to make the podcast for so long. We've been wanting to make the show for so long that we just couldn't help ourselves but to start making the show even before we were, monetarily ready to kind of put some flourish and shine on the editing and such. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a really good day. I hope God blesses you as he has me. So thank you. Have a good night.